So I see, when it comes to being a millennial, I see her completely focused on her career. But I asked her to speak about how does she interact with older people, right? What are her ways to do business with people that are older than you? Because you might be intimidated by these things. So I don't want you to be intimidated. I want you to understand how to build relationships with people that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and have them become your mentors and your friends, more importantly. Okay? So, without further ado, Taylor Shear.
Hey guys. Okay, so like he mentioned, millennial, which is a different perspective than what you're probably getting. But yeah, so he asked me to talk about closing the generation gap, which I'm just going to give you some background on kind of like my history, what I do, and then kind of how that fits in. So I come from the coffee industry originally. Totally didn't think I was going to be in marketing at all. If you asked, I would have said there's no way. No way at all. I created an account as an influencer before it was popular, where everyone was blogging and posting photos, just from a hobby for enjoying food and beverage. Started taking photos, posting it, didn't expect it to go anywhere. Actually was a joke to start with friends, and then started to grow. So I got a few thousand followers, started getting reached out to by different brands. It's like, this is a great hobby. I'm getting free food on the weekends. I'm going to take it somewhere. And then it kind of turned into something where I was getting paid to post photos. And then I was like, well, if I can get paid to post photos, what else could I do with it? One day, I was actually out at a restaurant. They invited me to come in. It was mainly in the hospitality industry. They asked if I ran social media accounts for restaurants. I was like, yeah, of course I do. What? Yeah, like obviously. Never even had been a thought of mine in a million years. He was like, oh, so how much do you charge? Immediately realized I put myself in a corner. Had no idea what I was going to say, but just made up numbers. And so kind of from there, he was like, okay, sounds good. Walks away, comes back with his checkbook and asks what my consulting company's name is. So again, make it up and kind of take him on as a client, go in and put my 2 weeks in where I was working, and was like, if I can just replicate this times 4 or 5, then I'll be good. And I'm going to have to make it work since I just put my 2 weeks in. So kind of did that and just put all my focus into it. And kind of what people who are millennials are not known as with this drive, I did the complete opposite. So spent all my time, all my money just investing into this avenue. Had a company approach me, which is an influencer marketing company. If you guys aren't familiar with just the term influencer, so anyone on social media with about 10,000 or more followers, again in the hospitality industry, approached me to kind of start working with them. They saw I was working with some brands, wanted some advice, came in as a consultant, totally didn't see it going anywhere again. Was just like, yeah, I'll throw a few hours into it. Kind of evolved into being something more, came in as director for them, then actually ended up as VP of business development for that company. It was a startup. The owner of the company was in his 30s. All of the other employees I was in charge of hiring were all in their 30s and 40s. So it was just kind of this weird dynamic. I was working with people who are 20 years older than I was, kind of seeing how they fit in, what their perspective of, and just immediately getting judged. As soon as I would sit down with them and interview them, it was a weird dynamic. I mean, I could put myself in their shoes and see how someone who's 20 years younger interviewing you would be a weird position to be in. So it was automatically knowing that I was kind of put on this backseat of like, okay, how much does she really know? So I was noticing that, for example, saying the word influencer. I can 100% guarantee you that if this room was full of people 40 years and older, they would automatically be lost in my conversation. Because I got that all the time. I'd start the conversation, be like, yeah, so I do influencer marketing. And they'd be like, and I'd just keep going. I'd be like, okay, yeah, so, they post on social media, we can do an event. And 40 minutes later into my pitch, they're like, so just to interrupt you, what's an influencer? And I'm like, oh, probably should have stated that in the beginning. So it's just kind of understanding the mindset is completely different. Just the simple things that you might say interacting with your peers and with people in the workplace. Somebody who's 20, 30 years older has no idea what, to you, basic terms are. So especially in anything that has to do with any industry now, it all's going to go back to social media now. That's just how it's going to evolve. With any business, social media, they're going to use marketing tools, and you'll say something and they'll have no idea what you're talking about. So you want to put yourself in a position where it's not demeaning at all, but more coming from an educational place off the bat, where you're not making any assumptions. That's the biggest thing. So I kind of went through that, and then when I launched my business, it was a very interesting perspective that I took just from kind of seeing what happened with that company, where I actually have everyone that works for me now are not millennials. And it kind of comes from this idea of kind of banking off what Hernan was saying a little bit, and also what Alex was saying. The idea of a millennial is unfortunately true with a lot of people, that there's no drive, there's no focus, and it's just not even because there isn't any drive, it's because you don't understand how to dial it in to relate to other people. So it was kind of going through this interviewing process, going through this networking process, trying to bring in people to do social media management, graphic design, which are all positions that should be very easy for a millennial to secure, but they just didn't understand how to interact with people who are already working with me, who are 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. They'd get there, and first of all, they'd show up late, which is a huge thing. For me, I'm a very, very punctual person, where if I'm not there early, I'm already late, which is not the mentality that most millennials have. And you'll find that. So if you're going to interview, if you're going to work with somebody who's a Gen Xer, and for you, if your meeting's at 4 p.m., you're meeting at Starbucks, and you show up at 4:02, that's totally normal if you're meeting with another millennial, probably. But somebody who has the mentality of you show how you care by how you present yourself, when you show up, that's automatically going to ruin everything else that's going to come out of your mouth for the rest of the meeting, because you were late. If you show up sloppy, again, it's these impressions that maybe they're, quote, old school, you have to adapt to. And again, it comes down to when you're closing the generation gap, networking is a huge thing. So evolving how you're connecting with people and how you're interacting with them based upon, first of all, not only their age, but their interests. I observe all the time what type of culture they are. What are they wearing? What car did they show up in? What are they ordering? How old are they? And then shifting how I speak to them based upon that. Because if whatever position that you're in, whether you're looking for a job, whether you're actually working with them, you want to look good. So you have to adapt on what you're doing to actually make them feel good and make them feel like they're not an outcast. I mean, especially when there's a lot of millennials and one Gen Xer, and they're hiring tons of millennials, and everyone's kind of congregating together, and you want to be the person to get that higher position. If you take the initiative to relate to the Gen Xer, it's going to completely stand out. So it's kind of understanding how to actually relate and come to events like this. These events are huge. Unfortunately, most people don't come to events like this, so this is already a huge step. But to kind of give you an idea just how I grew my business, because all of my clients are Gen Xers. I have no millennial clients. Most of the time, the older someone is, the more money they have, the more success they have. So you're going to be dealing with those people or wanting to be dealing with those people. So for me, all of my clients, all the people I work with, normally 20 years or older than me. And for me, it was just adapting how I met them. So rather than going to a networking event that was at a dingy bar or at a local restaurant where you're going to meet people who are kind of associated with that, I would go to events that are at Intercontinental. Join the chambers. The chambers are huge. Actually, that's how we originally connected, through the chamber and then through LinkedIn. It's huge. You're going to find people who actually are going to have those qualities you're looking for when you're looking for a job or looking to work with people. And then adapting how to actually speak them. So respecting people's time is a huge thing. Respecting their opinion when they're speaking. Again, we were actually having this conversation a little bit about just the types of situations for networking events. So, like I said, going to higher end places when you can relate to people, like I said, that's going to be huge. So it's just kind of adapting to each individual person. It's not necessarily just a millennial and a Gen Xer. It doesn't kind of come down to that. It's okay, you're going to have to dial back what you're saying, like I said, with the influencers, and knowing how to kind of shift what you're saying to that. but also figuring out each individual person and how much they're going to relate to what you're saying. So it's just kind of been an interesting evolution. And from my perspective as someone who's hiring people, for me, I actually did just hire my first millennial to work for my company, and it was off of LinkedIn. And funny enough, what Alex was saying, they sent me a personal message attached to their request. It was a message just pretty much asking to meet for a cup of coffee, which to me is huge. In this day and age, everyone wants to do things over the phone. All millennials want to just text each other and call each other. And for me, if you take the initiative and you say, hey, I'm based in Coral Gables, I'd love to meet for a cup of coffee. However, where are you located? It would be most convenient for you. Going out of your way to actually show them that you care, you really want it, you really want to get that position is going to stand out. I have 10,000 LinkedIn connections now. That's the first time I had a millennial message me a personal message that was not copy and pasted, because they went in, they looked at my website, they looked at my social media pages, they had mentioned things that I had put in there, and then asked to meet wherever was convenient for me. And I hired her because there was things afterwards that were completely impressive, but that set the tone that I wouldn't have taken a meeting, and I said no to about 200 other people who were looking for internships and jobs, because they would just request me on LinkedIn and then be like, hey, like, I don't know how you want me to respond to hey. And even as another millennial, I was like, you're coming to me for a job through text saying hey, which is totally commonplace, unfortunately. But it was taking those extra steps. So my suggestions would really be, if you're in the position that you're looking for a job right now, across the board, whether it's even another millennial, but especially with Gen Xers, take those extra steps to go back to, quote, old school mentalities. So meeting people in person, going where it's convenient for them, actually picking up the phone and reaching out to people through the phone versus text for the first time. So those little things that maybe your parents taught you growing up that you didn't think was going to be a big deal, and you're like, this is old school and no one listens to this anymore, they actually do matter, especially in the business environment. So that's just kind of my spiel on it. My experience that I've had. If anybody has any questions or want to know more kind of about what I do, I'll be here afterwards in